Hi, it's Dwyer, keepingitfree.blogspot.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Also, gamblersadvisory.com and dwyerboxingnews.com. Whenever I'm on Twitter these days, I always get tweets from people who know, from my postings on dwyervip.com, a premium pick site really devoted more to professional sports, that I believe that the best bet on the board right now is the plus 175, right? Plus 100 is even money. This is better than even money. It's the plus 175 that you can get on Mitt Romney to win the presidency here in the United States. Now, I always get people sympathetic to Barack Obama. Perhaps they're Democrats, perhaps they're independents, perhaps they are Republicans, and they always try to argue on Twitter in private messages with me that Barack Obama is a sure thing to win re-election, right? I just wanted to respond to those people here in this email, because as of today, September 12, 2012, I still believe that Mitt Romney wins the presidency. I believe the plus 175 is a severe casino mispricing. First, let me just say a few things. This isn't a matter of who you want to win, right? This isn't a matter of me hoping Mitt Romney wins the presidency. I'm not even a Romney supporter, right? I support Gary Johnson, a third-party candidate I don't think is going to win, right? I'm not a Mitt Romney supporter. I actually voted for Obama in 2008. Can't support him here, but I'm not rooting against him, right? My bet's actually based on who I think will win, not who I want to win. This isn't an issue of partisanship. Arguments about someone's platform and, their vote on issues and things like that really have no place in deciding who's going to win the bet. It's a little bit different, right? You're just looking at, how voters are going to vote. And then you're saying, okay, great. Whether or not they should vote that way, if they're going to vote that way, then it's a money-making opportunity. It's no different than investing in stocks, where you look at a product and you say, this product is overhyped, but enough people believe in the product where they're buying the stock, and so I need to be in the stock to get the appreciation. Right? Now, let me just name some states and let me name some reasons why I believe Romney should win the election. I'm going to name right now 6 states. I believe Romney likely wins 5 of the 6. Let's remember, this is actually an electoral college contest. It's not a contest on who gets the most popular vote, as Al Gore knows well from 2000, right? The 6 states are Virginia, Florida, Iowa, Missouri, Wisconsin, and North Carolina. Now let me just say, Mitt Romney's already up by a decent amount in both Missouri and North Carolina. You have to ask yourself why the polls in Iowa are a practical dead heat, given that Iowa is so close to Illinois, right? If you go back through presidential history, you're going to see that at the end of a long election, more times than not, the voters break for the challenger. When it's a toss-up, they vote for change against an incumbent. We've had Barack Obama for almost 4 years. If voters are going to vote for Barack Obama, they'd be on his side already. The skepticism, the reluctance is a harbinger of things to come, right? Let me point out too that as I make this video, Barack Obama has gotten a nice bounce from the Democratic Convention. Again, if you go back through history, who hasn't gotten a bounce? Right? Michael Dukakis got a bounce in 1988. Right? Is the bounce for Barack Obama or is it for Bill Clinton and the Democratic Party? Well, keep in mind, the bounce needs to be discounted because of the timing. Of course, the bounce has given him a lead in the polls right now, just like Mitt Romney got a bounce from his convention. But as in 1980, when Jimmy Carter was ahead of Ronald Reagan with less than 2 weeks to go, according to the polls, right? This election's really going to be decided after the voters have an opportunity to look at the candidates in their presidential debates. And understand right now, Mitt Romney is close enough to Barack Obama where if he does better than Obama in the debates, he'll get the nod. And let me just point out, I believe it's easier for him to do better in the debates than Barack Obama because Mitt Romney isn't saddled with the Obama economy. Right? The economy, forget what you've heard. The economy is so bad that market insiders are expecting QE3 from the Fed. The Fed wouldn't do QE3 if it thought QE3 was going to be inflationary. In other words, you have a market, and I'm talking about the economy, not the stock market. You have a market that's so depressed that just issued an anemic job report that has people so worried that the Fed is thinking about increasing the money supply. Right? And understand, that's not going to do much because Americans are so over-levered. Right? The housing market is still in shambles. There's a shadow inventory. Forget what I'm saying. Read the writings of people like Gary Schilling. Right? Understand, insiders in the housing industry have been predicting a turnaround for a long time. You know just from your own experience, looking at your neighbors, looking at the housing values in your neighborhood, how hard it is for even wannabe buyers to get financing, for people to sell their homes and to actually get what they owe on the mortgage. Right? You know how bad it is. Let me also say this too. You know, there are strong leaders in American history, and then there are guys who are a bit more subtle, right? My point to you is Barack Obama is one of these very subtle leaders, right? He had a Democratic House and Senate for the first 2 years of his presidency. You can look at his record and you can decide for yourself whether or not he's accomplished tax reform, welfare reform, whether there were big bills that he presented, that he authored, that the Congress voted down in any way, shape, or form. I'm talking about bills he authored, not bills authored by third parties like Max Baucus, right? In other words, you know, the president is the kind of president who takes 3.5 years to declare that he's in favor of gay marriage, right? He's the kind of president who takes several years to integrate the U.S. military. He's the kind of president who talks about immigration, doesn't have a comprehensive immigration bill that he's authored, right? Issues an executive order about prosecutorial discretion that only applies to young illegal immigrants and, of course, leaves them in limbo long term. Right? You come out, you say, okay, great, I'm an illegal, you register, and then, of course, if this president gets voted out of office, you're up the creek without a paddle. Well, that's the level of leadership we've gotten right? In terms of spending, $5 trillion in new debt. The Chevy Volt subsidy, of course, taxpayers, people who are not driving Chevy Volts, have subsidized Chevy Volts more than $30,000 per car. Some estimates are higher than $40,000 per car, right? We know about, cash for clunkers, what a boondoggle that is, right? We see that GM right now is teetering. This is after the government bailout, right? We see that money went to AIG and others, Merrill Lynch, etc., billions of dollars at a time when working and middle-class families, quite frankly, are struggling. And the student loan debt, right? What's the solution being offered? Not entirely creative. Isn't the solution to give students more debt? Isn't student loan debt right now bigger than credit card debt in the United States? So let's just say that the president really isn't, the kind of leader who you can say he's a historical leader apart from, right, who he is, first African American president of the United States. Apart from that, you really can't look at the record and reach the conclusion that, this president is the kind of game changer proposing game-changing legislation, like, let's say, an FDR, like, let's say, a John F. Kennedy, right? The solutions are really more of the, let's pass a jobs bill that the Oval Office did not author. Let's invest. That's the key word for spend, right? Let's invest in new technologies and, what have you, to try to build America without any real comment on the lack of financial sustainability of, the constant spending, right? The talk is on the need to, improve the healthcare system, again, without any real cost controls, right? Without any addressing of the runaway financial problems that Medicare and Medicaid have. And so my point is simply this: whether you like the governance or not, what you have is really a tepid presidency, right? Let's be real. What you have is really a tepid presidency with a lot of skepticism and an election that right now is deemed to be a toss-up according to polls, right? Even the polls generous to President Obama don't have him ahead by more than what Carter was ahead at this point in 1980, an election in which Jimmy Carter lost, right? There's no real big accomplishment that this White House has gotten. Black unemployment, as I make this video, is more than 14%, right? Minority unemployment across the board is up. This isn't the kind of election where the poor can say, you know what, we're better off. Let's run to the polls and generate the kind of turnout that we had in 2008. Rather, this election is really more about symbolism, right? And people saying, oh, yes, he's good for America. The problem is the symbolism doesn't pay the bills, right? The programs are so tepid loan modifications for homeowners. If you're a homeowner, you know how tepid the loan modification program is. The solutions have been so tepid that all I'm saying is the loyalty isn't the same as it was in 2008. Let me also point out another dynamic that should help Romney tremendously, and that's the money. Understand that the Republicans have far more money than the Democrats this time around. That was not the case in 2008. Here you have an incumbent, and never before in American history has an incumbent had so little money versus the opposition, right? You have an incumbent who, quite frankly, is underfunded versus Romney. And the point is, when the Romney team starts to get out their message of the true state of the economy, what exactly is going to be the response? If the response is like the presidency, then I'm expecting a tepid response. Let me point out, too, that a lot has been made of the women gap, right? There's supposed to be a war on women, and we're hearing that Barack Obama has a big lead among women. You know, Romney has the lead right now among married women, right? Single women, I'll agree. Barack Obama has a big lead. But there, too, the numbers aren't favorable, right? Because female poverty is on the rise. With men, the election's practically over. Men don't like Barack Obama versus Romney. They prefer Mitt Romney. With independents, Mitt Romney has the lead, right? So I expect Romney to sweep the South. I can't name a southern state that Barack Obama is going to win. Then, of course, you look at Wisconsin. It's razor close right now in Wisconsin. If Romney is able to sweep the South, sweep a lot of the Midwest, win states like Iowa, and then make inroads in a state like Wisconsin, what you're going to find is Barack Obama will be in trouble. And the way these things usually work, as they did in 1980, is when we get within days of the election, if suddenly the electorate gets the feeling that Mitt Romney is very viable as a candidate and that Barack Obama is very vulnerable, you'll be surprised how easy that last-minute wave of voters could lift Romney's electoral vote total over 300. I'm expecting Romney to win by a margin. It's not a matter of whether or not he should win. Quite frankly, Romney and Obama are disappointing in tandem on many issues. Civil liberties, balancing the budget, right? The Romney-Ryan plan doesn't balance the budget for more than a generation, right? I'll agree, support of the Patriot Act. I'm not watering at the mouth on either client. I myself listen to Romney and say, how is he going to do all the things he's claiming to do while reducing the deficit? I'm not saying either of these candidates is credible. But what I am saying is, based on historical patterns, if Romney wins 5 of the 6 states, Virginia, Florida, Iowa, Missouri, Wisconsin, and North Carolina, he's the next president of the United States. And if you're going to give me a plus 175 at those odds, yes, I'm going to jump in the water. Let me point out, too, that even Ohio, a state you would think would go Democratic, the margin right now is within 5 points. If you start to hear that Mitt Romney is running even with Barack Obama in states like Ohio, then the race is truly over. So yes, I've read the polls. I know that Obama got a post-convention bounce. All I could say about that is big deal. If Barack Obama really wanted to be a strong candidate for the presidency, if he had a strong candidacy, we wouldn't be talking about a post-convention bounce. We'd be talking about actual economic numbers, right? I watched that Democratic convention. I didn't hear anything about minority unemployment, right? The issues are in the background for a reason. I expect Romney to win. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at keepingitfree.blogspot.com and of course, gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for watching.